Hey, you've done it. You've developed your style, planned ahead by writing some episodes, you've copped that perfect starter pack, and have recorded some episodes. It's time to post and create your brand. I'm so glad you found this podcast, my personal journey of creating and posting all kinds of media on the internet and the tools and techniques that I use to do so. If you like this kind of content, you can find more of it streaming on platforms like iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. And I encourage you to join the conversation on my Facebook group, Creative Progress. There are billions of options for how you can market your podcast, but I want to talk about where I'm at in my journey and how I'm posting and marketing my podcast and how I plan to grow the show as the show continues. The three topics we're going to cover today are RSS feeds, what they are and how to get one, social media and blogs, and website development. So let's hop right into it. Establishing an RSS feed. An RSS feed is the easiest way to let your audience know that you've posted new content. It's a link that speaks to several platforms at once to let them know that you have a new podcast ready to share. You can also schedule posts for a later date on many of these hosts if you have episodes recorded and ready for the future. A few options include, and I'll start with the free and then we'll move it into paid options. The free option is SoundCloud. I post my music here, but know that others post their podcasts here. It does come with time limitations if you have a longer format podcast. You will eventually have to upgrade to a premium mode when you run out of time. YouTube is starting a podcast section on their channel as well. I haven't dove into that yet, but it may be something to look into for future episodes. Podbean, Buzzsprout, and RSS.com are the three main RSS feed hosts that most podcasters are talking about right now. I'm currently paying $15 to host my show on RSS.com, but I do have a plan for down the road, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Once you choose your host, you will be prompted to submit and verify your information. Hosting platforms also ask for a logo for your show. Remember a few shows back I was talking about who you know and how they may be able to help? Do you know a graphic designer that would be willing to put something together for you? This could be a great way to get others involved with your show. You could mention their skills on your show. You could have them on as a guest to talk about their skill or craft. But if that's not an option, I do have a tip for you. Canva is a free online graphic design toolkit. It's what I use to design the logo and other graphics for this show. Once you submit your podcast RSS feed to major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts and Anchor, this will get your audio on all podcasting networks like iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Let's talk about creating a social media presence now. I definitely made it a point to sign up on as many social networking platforms as possible: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and X. I don't want to fall into one platform because I believe that social networks can be volatile. We all remember what happened to MySpace. And you have to consider if one is gone tomorrow, you're not going to want all your eggs in that one basket. I'm also taking a little bit of time each week to study analytics. I'd like to know where my audience reacts most on which social networks. As time progresses, I definitely want to focus more on the networks where my audience is. When you're making posts to these platforms, you want to use eye-catching thumbnails, compelling titles and descriptions, and tag relevant creators and links of your resources. As a content creator or a podcast writer, you can always feel like you're on the clock, under the gun, and you have to get things out quickly. I don't always have time to write an eye-catching title or description, and that's why I'm going to share this game changer that I've been using and abusing since I got back into the podcasting game. ChatGPT is a free AI service. It allows me to type in my idea, and then I can ask it to spit out a few eye-catching titles. I've literally copied and pasted my entire show notes, and it's helped me come up with a description for social media. Keep in mind, I just use this as a helpful tool. There's no substitution for being an authentic, real human being. When you're making your post, you definitely want to make sure you're engaging your audience regularly. Try to share episode teasers, behind-the-scene glimpses of what you're doing, audience interactions, and relevant articles on topics that you're speaking about. Automation is a great way to stay relevant and stay at the top of your audience's social media feeds. The last thing we're going to talk about is building your perfect website. You can create a website for your hobby, business, or podcast using platforms like WordPress, Squarespace, or Kajabi. Any of these website builders are going to help you create a website that's intuitive and easy to navigate. Include an About You page. Here you may want to have a resume or a portfolio showing your past works. Don't forget to include a section for your archived episodes. Plan on having a contact/email opt-in on every page. If you have merchandise or services that you offer, a place to buy those is definitely a must. Lastly, include a section to feature your sponsors and affiliates. Maintaining relevancy in the world of creators is a constant battle. The easiest way to do this is to update your website with current episodes and detailed show notes. Also include any additional content to enhance user engagement. Tutorials, free tools, online courses, one-on-one or group engagements is also a great idea. I am currently starting without a website, and I know what you're thinking. Why are you telling me about websites? I have had a business with a website before. I'm currently starting without one because I am trying to challenge myself to stay consistent with what I'm doing before I start expecting too much engagement from an audience. I'd rather get back into the swing of things ugly with little to no audience and grow into my brand rather than attempt to be a household name and not have my act together. Here's some bonus content to wrap it up. I recently rediscovered blogger.com. It used to be blogspot.com. And whenever I signed in, I found out that I still had a whole bunch of feedback podcast episode show notes. I do vaguely remember whenever I did have my website, I used this as a free RSS host. I'm going to do a little bit more digging for you guys and rediscover this again, and hopefully come back with an episode devoted to how I found a free RSS feed through blogger.com. That being said, it's never a bad idea to have a supporting blog and to up those social posts for audience engagement. Integrate a blog section on your podcast website or post regularly to wherever you host your community to provide supplementary content and insights. These posts could include detailed show notes for every episode, deeper dives onto key points, reference materials, relevant links, articles, or even other creators' posts. Don't forget, podcasting is a community. If you need help, don't be too timid to reach out to somebody in the community that may be a step or two ahead of you. Utilizing this blog or your social network is going to foster that sense of community among your audience. You're in the final stages. You've reached an exciting phase of posting and establishing your brand. If you do it right, you will always be improving and growing your knowledge of podcasting, social media, and online engagement. Focus on these steps as you forge ahead. Select a hosting platform for your RSS feed. Submit that feed to major podcast directories. Design your logo and start creating eye-catching visuals for your podcast. Engage with your audience regularly through content platforms like Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. Create a website when the time is right. Start your blog with detailed show notes or tips and checklists for your audience. Foster your niche community through mentions and references and engagements on their forums. Thanks for taking the time to dive into these topics with me today. If you like this episode, you can find more like it on Spotify, iTunes, and my YouTube channel. If there's a specific topic that I've touched on that you would like to hear more about in depth, please join the conversation over on my Facebook group and let me know what you'd like to hear more about in the future. Until next time, I'm Wes Nile. Keep creating, keep progressing.